buddies, Lucen Zero here. Glad to see you all again. Today's video is going to be who you should be playing in Marvel Rivals as in Duelist class based off who you main from Paladins. Some context who I am. I'm a Paladins player. I've hit Diamond multiple times. I've been playing back since 2019. I've been playing just that entire time basically. And for my credentials in Marvel Rivals, I got into the beta and I've been keeping up the game since the alpha and just ever since after the beta too. So yeah, starting off with our main boy right here in Droxus. Currently, we don't have someone who matches his like speed perfectly in the game, but I'd say your best bet is going with Bucky just because he has that heavy revolver. It explodes on contact with the shots. It's just a lot of like bursty damage on your shots. It can combo each other abilities and then do an omnidirectional dash to kind of get out the way. He's not as mobile as Androxis, but hits just as hard with it. Next up is going to be Buck. And Buck, you know, he's our fast-moving, mobile character who has a big jump and lets you be able to, you know, combo, shotgun, kill people. So I'd say he kind of lands into the Spider-Man territory of things. You know, Spider-Man, you zip in, you do a wombo combo on a single person, and you leave. He's not for sustained fight. He's not for backline damage. He's for getting in, doing your job, and leaving. Next up is Caspian. And Caspian, I'm going to build with Black Panther just because Black Panther has a lot of abilities that you want to like combo into each other, shred up, dash in to do some damage, dash out to leave when you're done. Get a little bit of health in between your abilities, and he's pretty fast like Caspian. He's technically the fastest walking person in the game. It doesn't count like speed boosts or movement abilities, but physically walking, Black Panther is technically the fastest at the moment. Next up is going to be Koga. Koga, you guys are going to be happy. We do have a dual SMG character who moves fast in the game. He doesn't have a claw mode, unfortunately, but Star-Lord does have these SMGs. They hit pretty good damage. They go pretty far. So it's a pretty good time for it. It's definitely what you want to go for. Next up is going to be Lex. Unfortunately, right now, we don't have anybody who has like that quick alternating big clip heavy damage like Lex does. So your best bet is going with Star-Lord again. You know, he's a hit scan character, does good consistent damage, has some movement with his flying around. So for right now, I'd say your best bet is going for the Star-Lord. Next up is going to be Sati, and these, by the way, these aren't ordered in these specific ways. I kind of just broke them up on the ones that kind of felt more like damages and felt more like tanks. But in Marvel Rivals, they're all just called Duelist, and I think it's fine like that. But Sati, once again, gonna be a revolver character like Bucky. Bucky, funny enough, feels a lot more like Sati than Androxis just because he has the chunky damage. He can knock forward. He can technically knock forward people with his dash and punch, and also kind of disrupt them like Sati does with the dash back. And also a decent amount of movement just with his omnidirectional dash and hooking people in. He has a lot of like useful CCs that combo into good damage. His ultimate also does a lot of like killing confirming. Sati, it's only shots, but trust me, Bucky has a ultimate that you can just keep on refunding if you get kills, so it's good. Next up is going to be one of my friend's favorite characters, Evie. Evie 100% goes into the Spider-Man category just because he's the super fast flying character. He doesn't fly, but he flips through the air with his webs. It's Spider-Man. You know what he does. Yeah, you can just combo in, single people out, move on to the next person, single them out, and just keep on snowballing based off that. And they both have a big AoE. I don't want to call either of them damage over time. It does a lot of ticks of damage bit by bit until people are dead. And also it CCs them. Spider-Man will just spin around and start shooting webs at everybody. It'll stun them in place and just keep on doing damage. Basically imagine an Evie ult that does more damage, stops them in place completely. Yeah, that's all you need to know. That's it. Next up is going to be Maeve, who I'm going to put over here with Black Panther, just because Black Panther is someone who you want to combo in to confirm kills with, because he throws a dagger, it does damage. You can dash, that does damage. Dashing someone who got hit by a dagger will reset your dash. By then you can throw your other dagger and dash again, and just it's basically like Maeve Pounce and the reset on the 9 lives ability. And going on to our next little purple flank is Skye. Skye, she kind of can lean towards 2 people. You can either go Psylocke. Psylocke is a character that does a lot of damage, kind of close up, can go invisible, mess up the enemy's backline, and has an ultimate that can hit the whole team. It doesn't kill them all, but it does do good damage. Alternately, I can also say you can go for... Where is she? Scarlet Witch, if you want to. They both can turn invisible and move around. Scarlet Witch will have a big nuke that you have access to. So yeah, they both go invisible, both have a nuke ultimate. Scarlet Witch does a lot of little tick damaging shots, and then she can do more bursty. So I'd say it goes a lot more between these two, but if you want a character that's more on the easy end, I would go for Scarlet Witch. Next up is going to be Talus, another one of my friend's favorite characters. Different friend, but he kind of very much lines in with the Star-Lord. Just because, once again, SMGs do a lot of quick firing damage. He can move around with his flight. That's kind of where the overlaps stop. But I'd say... Actually, I think they changed this during the beta, but the team up with Magic allowed it so you can rewind with Black Panther and Psylocke, I believe, if you happen to have a Magic team up. But just for the primary fire, I'm going to keep them on Star-Lord. Next up is going to be Vatu. I'm going to put him in the Psylocke category just because they both have primary fires that do a decent amount of damage. Their primary fires... I don't know if Vatu still has it, but he used to have an ability that it would reduce his cooldowns based off hitting his primary. Psylocke just has that in base kit. Psylocke also has some dashes that do damage, and also can turn invisible. I know Vatu doesn't turn invisible, but he dashes around and teleports. You're losing track of him either way, just like you would with Psylocke, as long as you're playing her right. Next up is going to be Betty. Ooh, sorry, I just lost my train of thought there for a second. Where is he? Oh, he goes in Moon Knight. Moon Knight is a character that can basically ricochet his shots from characters back and forth, his primaries, and also throw out something that'll make his shots ricochet even more and hit other people. So it's not necessarily blast AoE damage, but as long as they're next to each other, it's going to automatically target those people in said AoE. So if you want to just be able to sit back, farm up damage on grouped up enemies who are kind of like not positioned right, Moon Knight is where you want to go. Alternatively, just kind of like a caveat, you could also go Iron Man just because it is a blast character that just has high ground. But there's some other characters that are more like him later on. Next up... Oh, why do I have 2 Bettys? Was that Betty? Oh, that was 7. I'm so sorry. I thought that was a splash art for Betty. 7. Oh, 7 is basically Spider-Man. He has a lot of good mobility. And Spider-Man has, he Spider-Man swings. Vatu swings around. Potato, same difference. There's not really a lot of characters exactly like 7. He has a weird kit and cycling between a whole bunch of different damages. But I'd say for right now, go for Spider-Man. But Vora, one of my favorite characters of all time, she basically is my favorite Paladins character right now. She 100% goes into Spider-Man, which is also one of my favorite Rivals characters. They both have double tendrils. They both have ultimates that... She has an execute at 60%. If something survives him at all doing his ultimate, it's definitely not going to be when they're under 60% health. So it's basically an AoE execute if they're low at that point anyway. I wouldn't say they have very much aligning abilities, but just super aligning vibes. It's that mobility, that double, that get in, that get out, singling out people. Spider-Man's who you want to go. Speaking of singling out people, we have Zhin. I think you want to go for Iron Fist just because Zhin and Iron Fist both have kind of a counter. Iron Fist, the way his block works is when he blocks a hit, it's also omnidirectional. You can shoot him in the back, it'll still protect. His following up hits will be amplified. So imagine Zin's primary shots just doing crazy damage instead. He also has like a meditating healing mode, kind of like Buck. So it's not as perfect as an intangible, but I've seen the Iron Fist in the footage for the trailers get up to like 500 health. For context, his base health is 250, so he's jacked swole at that point. Next up is going to be Omen. Omen definitely lands over into, oddly enough, the Psylocke category. Psylocke basically has the same burst shotgun that Omen has, but the more long range version. It's like if Omen was permanently like in his midway shooting form, that's basically Psylocke. She also has a dash that does damage, like Omen, but hers goes through people. She can turn invisible, unlike Omen, and they both have ultimates that do a lot of damage if people stay in it. Because Psylocke's is a little bit less damage, admittedly, because Omen's does crazy amount of damage. But it does a wider area. I got Betty right. Oh yeah. I forgot. We talked about Betty before. We're just gonna put her up into the Iron Man stage. Insert whatever I said about Betty there. Oh no, actually, Moon Knight. That's what it was. Next is gonna be Bomb King. Bomb King we can put over into the Iron Man section just because they have like those AoE targeting. With Bomb King, you're not trying to hit everybody. You're trying to hit a single person. That's what you want to do with Iron Man. You kind of want to. He has a good splash, but you're mostly want to targeting someone out, trying to finish them off, or doing damage across the whole area. They also both have really high damaging ultimates, so it works well like that. Next up is Cassie. For Cassie, you definitely want to go over into, where is she? Hella's category. Hella basically does a lot of single target hit scan damage that is chunky, and they both walk around the place. Cassie does have a better role. Hella kind of has like a Corvus teleport, but slower. And you know, Hela doesn't reveal people for ultimate, but it lets her fly in the air and do crazy damage from a bird's eye view, which is basically what Ziggs is doing. It's like if Ziggs was doing the shots instead of you. So that works too. Drogos. Fun fact. Marvel Rivals just made Drogos that is better. I'm sorry if you're offended by that, but they just took Drogos and made him 10 times better. Primary fires has way more ammo. Flying has infinite flight. Oh, propelling? It's just on a resource that he can kind of fly omnidirectionally fast with. Ultimates, Drogos can one-shot one person. Iron Man can one-shot the whole team. Because he just sends out basically a literal nuke. Yeah, Iron Man is just better in every conceivable way, specifically the way Drogos is. Also, fun fact, you can also play Storm. Storm also kind of flies infinite flight capabilities. Not as much AoE damage, but can kind of like slash through people. Kind of different, but they're still in the same category. I'd say if you somehow don't like Iron Man, try Storm out too. Willow, same exact reasoning. Imagine constantly being in your Willow ult. That's Iron Man. That's just Iron Man. You're just constantly in your Willow ult, constantly shooting. His primary shots are actually a little bit closer to Willow's than Drogos's. Damage wise, fire rate, I'd say. But yeah, it has just the flying capabilities like that. He also has, instead of one big like shot that can blow up into little shots, he has his unibeam, which is basically just a stream of mega damage that goes really far and really fast. Speaking of that stream mega beam, I'm going to skip Dreedge for a second, even though it's going to be similar. Imani. I'm going to put Imani into the section for. Technically, if you're using Frostbolt Imani, you're going to put in Moon Knight because Moon Knight's primary shots works the same way. If people are around each other, they're going to bounce between. Um, but if you're going to use the Fireball, it's kind of more similar to Hawkeye, you know, the arrow shots. And if you're going to be using her flame, Iron Man's Unibeam is basically a better Imani flame cannon. It does more damage. He has more mobility in it, and it's on a, I think it's on a shorter cooldown. If it's not, it feels better than the Infernal Cannon. But I'd say just for the general use of like Frostbolts, I'm gonna keep her in the Moon Knight section. But if you specifically like flying around with the fire cannon, Iron Man. Okay, next up is going to be Dreedge. Dreedge, I'm going to. I promise I don't mean to, but a lot of people just fall into that category of Iron Man, you know, splash damage from high grounds. I will say, honorable mention, if you like playing the Harpoon playstyle for Dreedge, that is basically Namor's primary fire. Namor has that primary fire where he throws out a spear, or a trident rather, and then he can also place like these kind of turrets to do damage for him. So it's a little bit different of a playstyle, but if you like throwing harpoons at everybody, go with Namor. If you like doing splash damage, go with Iron Man. But I'm going to keep him in Namor just to give him a little bit of love. Next up is going to be Kasumi. Kasumi definitely falls into the Scarlet Witch category. Scarlet Witch basically has a auto-targeting, like, tick damage, kind of like it's like a Torvald siphon basically. So if you don't know how to aim because you play Kasumi, you can go ahead and play Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch also has an ability where she can throw out a little orb that doesn't stun. I kind of say it flinches people. Like they get like quick stun, quick stun, quick stun as they're trying to leave the field, and that reminds me of Kasumi's like fear. It's basically like a much less version of his fear, but it kind of comes back and forth. Next up is going to be Kinnessa. Kinnessa, fun fact, when I was doing the first draft of this video, Black Widow was not actually out yet, so we didn't have any snipers. So before that, I was going to say Hela. Now that we have Black Widow, definitely go Black Widow. She is a great sniper. Her ultimate lets you do a little bit of damage from a shot and also slows people. So if they're going to be slowed down and you're a sniper, you better get your headshots anyway. That's your headshot multiplier right there, basically. She also kind of has a different mode change where she can kind of push people off, hit them with her primary little batons. So just like how Kinnessa has her carbine, Black Widow can hold off people that are close to her too. I've seen her take out some people from the footage I've seen so far. Next up is going to be Lian. Lian definitely falls in the category of using Hela. Hela, like I said before, is hit scan, quick damaging, long range shooter. Not a sniper, but you know how it is. It's range and does chunky damage. You keep on poking out at people. It's simple as that. Octavia, same exact reason as Hela. Marvel Rivals doesn't really have a lot of gun characters right now. So if you like those, you know, down to scope sniping characters, there's not too many. Realistically, it's only Black Widow. So if you want to look down scopes, technically you can go Black Widow. But I'd say if you want to do that kind of chunk damage that Octavia is known for, go for Hela. That's going to be your better shot for it. Next up is going to be Shalin. To no one's surprise, Hawkeye. They're both arrow people. They also both have blast arrow shots. Hawkeye's doesn't do as much to a single target, but does more in an AoE. And his ultimate is kind of Shalin's old ultimate, where he left a little shadow trail. But instead, Hawkeye puts a trail on his enemies, and if he hits those clones, basically, those trails, he can do damage to the enemy instead. So that's really nice. Next up is gonna be Victor. Um, yeah, it's Punisher. It's the AK-47 boys. They sit in the back line, they do their damage, they get MVP of the game. You know the archetype, those Soldier 76s. Punisher does have a little bit more interesting tools to use. He doesn't have a sprint, but he does have the ability to like just place a zip line for himself and use it, and I believe his teammates can use it too, if I'm not mistaken. He can also swap from his AK into a shotgun. So instead of having to run away from people who jump you, you can pull a shotgun to their face and do that. Not a real one, it's just video game. He also has a smoke bomb to also, push people away from him, get some distance so he can whip out his shotgun and just headshot with that. Um, Punisher's ultimate, just FYI, is just Ruckus's ultimate but more mobility. So imagine you're Victor with Ruckus's ult being able to still walk around. Next up is going to be Strix. Like I was saying before, not a oh, where'd he go? Not a lot of snipers in this game, so he's going to get over to the Black Widow area. Her ultimate's just better than Strix's because instead of just blinding people and then cleansing the CC in a second, she's going to slow them down intensely, and you're just going to get your headshots from there. Okay, down to the last three. We have Tiberius. According to my notes, where did I put him? For right now, we don't really have a lot of characters that match Tiberius's playstyle. If you want, you can kind of like combo in with Magic. Magic's a melee character, but you can also like throw out a big slash from her sword from a range and then pick off someone after that with like a dash in. So just like how Tiberius, how you could sword, pounce onto them, then primary fire, you can do that. I've also seen gameplay of Wolverine. He seems to be very upfront in people's faces, slashing them up, and then going into an extra damage mode, his Berserker mode, and he gets a lot of healing from that, just like how Tiberius had all those shielding and healing cards from combat stance. So I'd say anywhere between these two, probably down the line, we'll get more characters that align more like them. But I'd say for right now, use these two. Maybe Iron Fist, because he has that faster firing hits after he hits a block. But for right now, I'm going to say Wolverine, just because that sustainability. Tyra, no surprise here. Just plays Victor. Not Victor. It's basically Victor. It's just Punisher. It's the closest thing you're gonna get to like a long range, high damage firing weapon that isn't like a flank playstyle. Um, he can kind of move around. Like I said, he has a shotgun, so he can do the closer damage that he needs. And the smoke bombs kind of like propel people off, kind of like Tyra's grenades. It's not 1-to-1, but it's your best bet. And last but not least, this was kind of anticlimactic for the video, I guess. But Vivian also for Punisher. It's how it is. They're just the AK-47 characters. As you can see, most of the characters like there's a lot of options you can go for most people. It's just for right now. The game just started basically. So I'd say give it a try. See what the new characters are like. These guys are really fun. If you guys have any questions, just leave a comment. I can try my best to answer it and give you more suggestions based off that. But yeah, that was another Lucent Zero video. I'll be releasing the tank and not tank, Vanguard and Specialist list soon. See ya. Thank you for watching.